Hey guys, Keaton here with TechSmart, and today we're going to be comparing the brand new iPhone 6 and iPhone 6 Plus to the kind of older Samsung Galaxy S5. So we've done a ton of Samsung Galaxy S5 coverage here on the channel, and this video is really going to be kind of a battle of some of the most popular smartphones out on the market. So without further delay, let's go ahead and dive on in. So up first here, let's go and talk about some hardware. So the iPhone 6 boasts a 4.7-inch display on the front, a front-facing camera, a home button which also acts as Touch ID, meaning it's a fingerprint scanner. And to the right of the device, we have our sleep-wake switch along with a SIM card slot. To the left, we have a mute switch and volume rocker. At the top, we have nothing, which is kind of interesting because we have seen the sleep-wake switch on the top for the last few years. On the bottom of the phone, we have a 3.5mm headphone jack, the lightning charging port, a speaker, and microphone. Now flipping it over to the back, we have the 8-megapixel camera along with dual LED flash. Moving over to the iPhone 6 Plus, it has a lot of the same characteristics as the iPhone 6, but on the front it features a 5.5-inch display, a front-facing camera, a home button which also acts as Touch ID, also meaning a fingerprints reader. Then to the right of the device, there's a sleep-wake switch and a SIM card slot. To the left, we have our mute switch and volume rocker. At the top, we have nothing, and towards the bottom, we have a 3.5mm headphone jack, the lightning charging port, a speaker, and microphone. Now flipping it over to the back, there is an 8-megapixel camera and a dual LED flash. Now for kind of the odd guy in this comparison, we have the Samsung Galaxy S5. So on the front, there's a 5.1-inch display with a front-facing camera, a capacitive multitasking and back buttons, and then you have a tactile and physical home button which also acts as a fingerprint scanner, and it's a little bit different than the Touch ID as the mechanism is a bit different in order to activate the fingerprint reader. To the right of the device, there's the sleep wake button, and to the left there is a volume rocker. At the top, there's an IR blaster and the 3.5mm headphone jack, and to the bottom of the device, there's a USB 3.0 charging port, and there's a flap covering it to keep water out. And then finally, flipping it over to the back, we have a 16-megapixel camera and a heart rate monitor. Simply, you just put your finger on there. Now with hardware on the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus, you're going to be getting a very similar experience. It's aluminum throughout the entire device, and that's something I really love. I love a metal phone, and that's again why I've been so attracted to the HTC One M8. And I just like everything the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus has. I just love that cold metal feeling in the morning when you haven't touched your phone for a certain period. But if metal really isn't your thing, and if you accidentally drop your phone and want to replace some of the back covers, the Samsung Galaxy S5 is made out of pretty much all plastic, and it has a chrome ring around the sides, which is made to look like metal, but it's plastic, and if you drop it at all, you'll know it's plastic. So I like how the Samsung Galaxy S5 is kind of modular. You can swap in and out the battery, as it also has a removable battery. You can put an SD card in there if you want to expand storage and don't really want to pay the exuberant amount of money you're going to be paying Apple just to get higher capacity on your phone. And if you don't really like the color of back cover you have and want to kind of just do some cool interchangeable things, you can go ahead and swap it out as well. But if you really want superior build quality, I think the iPhone is your best bet. Moving over to one of my favorite categories, it is specifications. And starting with the iPhone 6, it features a 4.7-inch display with a resolution of 1334 by 750 and a pixels per inch count of 326 ppi. Now for a processor, it features Apple's A8 chip, which is also a 64-bit processor. It's a dual-core processor, and it clocks in at 1.4 gigahertz. Now it also features 1 gigabyte of RAM, and for the camera here, it rocks an 8-megapixel shooter with a 1/3-inch sensor. Now in terms of battery life here, you're going to get around a full day's worth of use, so definitely an upgrade from the iPhone 5S to the iPhone 6, which means you're going to get 14 hours of talk time and 10 hours of LTE. This is just what Apple's claiming, but you will be able to get a full day's worth of use, even if you use your phone pretty heavily. So there's no micro SD card slot on here like you would find on the Samsung Galaxy S5, but there is a fingerprint reader known as Touch ID, which works extremely well, and there is NFC to use with Apple Pay and other applications like that. Moving over to the iPhone 6 Plus here, it boasts a 5.5-inch display with a resolution of 1920 by 1080 and 401 pixels per inch. It rocks Apple's A8 chip, which is also a 64-bit processor, and it's an also dual-core processor clocking in at 1.4 gigahertz. It's rocking an 8-megapixel camera along with a 1/3-inch sensor with optical image stabilization, so that's different than the iPhone 6. For battery life, you're going to get around a day and a half's worth of use, which is perfect for me because my iPhone 5S dies way too quickly. And just coming from Apple's website here, you're going to be able to get around 24 hours of talk time or 12 hours of LTE data. But obviously you're not using LTE every hour of the day. Just browse everything. Yes, it is on, but you're obviously going to be using it in moderation. But even if you do use your phone hard at certain points, you're going to see a day and a half's worth of battery life. And finally, there's a fingerprint scanner on here and NFC, which will work perfectly for Apple's Pay, but there's no micro SD card slot like you find on the Galaxy S5. And finally, coming to the Galaxy S5, it features a 5.1-inch screen with a 1080p resolution and a 432 pixels per inch count. It features the Snapdragon 801 processor, which is also quad-core and clocks in at 2.5 gigahertz. For GPU, it comes with the Adreno 330, 2 gigabytes of RAM, a 16 megapixel camera with Ultra HD, also known as 4K video, but it is unstabilized, and it boasts a 2800 milliamp hour battery, which in my testing, I was able to get around a day to a little bit over a day's worth of battery life, and I use my phones pretty heavily. So there is a micro SD card slot, meaning you're not gonna have to shell out hundreds of extra dollars just to get expandable storage, and that's kind of why I love micro SD. So it supports up to 128 gigabytes just in terms of expandable storage. It's IP67 certified, which means you can take this thing through water, etc. And we actually did an ultimate water test. If you want to check it out, the link can be found right below that like button. And it also features a fingerprint scanner for added security. Now for the software experience here, the iPhone 6 and iPhone 6 Plus both boast iOS 8. So iOS 8 is a simple flat user interface. It's very easy to pick up, and I even gave this phone to my grandma. She was able to kind of master it within an hour or so. I mean, yes, she's not a techie, but iOS is so simple, flat, and it's very easy to understand. So that's just that in its own sense. Now, some of the design cons here is there's very little options for customization, and the operating system is very stale and outdated. Hopefully iOS 9 or the next generation of iOS is different. But in terms of features here, you're going to get the fingerprint unlock, also known as Touch ID, and Apple Pay, which works on the NFC chip found in the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus. But for software on the Galaxy S5 at the time of this recording, it is Android 4.4.4 KitKat. It has TouchWiz on there, which is Samsung's own skin, and I'm not a big fan of TouchWiz, mainly being because it is very blocky. I just think it looks ugly. If you go into the settings menu, you're going to find like 60-something options just to do things. I mean, the operating system is nicer from last year's iteration of TouchWiz, but it's still pretty ugly in my opinion. And there's lots of bloatware on here, but that's totally understandable. Up next here, it is the displays. Starting with the iPhone 6, it features a 4.7-inch display, which clocks in at 1134 by 750 in terms of resolution, yielding a 326 pixels per inch count, and it looks fantastic. Now for the iPhone 6 Plus here, it clocks in at 5.5 inches with a resolution of 1920 by 1080. Also looks awesome and probably is my favorite display out of all of these phones. And for the Galaxy S5, it's a 5.1-inch display with a 1080p resolution. So both the iPhone 6 and iPhone 6 Plus are IPS LCD displays, as Samsung's Galaxy S5 is a Super AMOLED, and you can definitely tell on the S5 that colors look a little bit oversaturated. I love saturation, so I don't really care. But with the iPhone 6, the colors look fantastic. It's nice and bright, vibrant, and I would honestly say this will work for a lot of people. Now, if you want to bump it up a little bit and spend a little bit more money, the iPhone 6 Plus looks great. It's a huge, vibrant display. It's 5.5 inches, and with 401 pixels per inch, you're definitely in for a treat. And then for the Samsung Galaxy S5, it looks great. Their displays I'm definitely impressed with. It can look a little bit oversaturated, so if you don't really mind that, then this display definitely does work. And moving to the camera side of things here, and starting with the iPhone 6 and iPhone 6 Plus, both have an 8 megapixel shooter, and with the iPhone 6, I thought the camera looked fantastic. It has a larger 1/3 inch sensor than before with larger pixels known as focus pixels. Focus pixels are both found on the 6 and the 6 Plus. You have 240 frames per second slow motion along with 60 frames per second at 1080p, and I was just blown away by the iPhone 6's camera. Now hopping over to the iPhone 6 Plus, it has an amazing camera, a large 1/3 inch sensor with optical image stabilization. So optical image stabilization is not featured on the iPhone 6, so that is a perk in itself, but on the iPhone 6 Plus, it does include 240 frames per second slow motion and 60 frames per second at 1080p. It looks great. I personally loved the iPhone 6 Plus's camera a tad bit more than the iPhone 6 in that respect. And then hopping over to the Samsung Galaxy S5, it boasts a 16 megapixel sensor. So that's fantastic and all. And for video, you can get 4K video, but it's a little bit shaky. So you're probably going to want to buy a stabilizer of some sort, as it doesn't boast optical image stabilization, which is kind of surprising, as I really hoped by this time with cameras we'd see optical image stabilization for all types of video formats out there, but clearly not. And the photos look great, the detail is definitely there, and colors will pop on this display as they're kind of oversaturated, and when I'm taking pictures, I just am in complete awe. But the camera's not quick enough, so if that's something you really do want, then probably the iPhone 6 or 6 Plus is going to be your best bet. Now for battery life here on the iPhone 6, you're going to receive around a full day's worth of use, and I put this thing through pretty rigorous testing, and I use my phone heavily on a daily basis. Now for the iPhone 6 Plus, and this is going to be fantastic for those people that just really can't put their phone down, but for me, in using my phone pretty heavily, I was able to receive around a day and a half's worth of battery. And then coming to the Samsung Galaxy S5 with this 2800 milliamp hour battery, you're going to be able to receive around 12 hours of battery life, which in some respects is a full day depending on how much you are actually using your phone. For me, I was able to get at least a day's worth of battery life. So with all of these smartphones, you're pretty much covered and you should be set for an entire day. So in conclusion here, the iPhone 6 is a very fast phone with the A8 processor, which is also a 64-bit processor. It has an amazing camera. It's very thin, very light. But in terms of the operating system, and this applies to both the 6 and the 6 Plus, it's a little bit stale, outdated, and I mean, iOS 8 is great because it works fine. I don't have any problems there. But I mean, you're not getting anything too new besides customized keyboards and a few other nice things. And the larger screen is definitely appreciated, and I love a 4.7-inch display. Definitely more than I did for my iPhone 5S's 4-inch display. Now for the iPhone 6 Plus, it is the biggest phone ever. 5.5 inches. I love it a ton, and when I was first doing my first impressions, I wasn't too keen on this, but when I held it in my hand and noticed how light it was and how my hands really wrapped around those curved, beautiful edges, I love this phone a ton. I love the pixel density on here, 401 pixels per inch. You can't beat it, and it looks really good. And yes, the Samsung Galaxy S5 does beat it in terms of a pixels per inch quantity, but many applications are not optimized for the iPhone 6 Plus just yet, but Apple has given developers easy tools to kind of scale them up and keep that Retina HD quality. And overall, I was very impressed with the battery life, and I love the optical image stabilization on the 6 Plus as well. And finally, the Samsung Galaxy S5 is what I'd consider the iPhone of the Android world. This phone is wildly popular. You can even look at the sales. It's crazy. The build quality is good. Is it as good as an iPhone? Definitely not, because I'd pick metal over plastic any day. It's nice that it's IP67 certified because you can take it in the shower if that's your kind of thing. And the camera's pretty great if you are okay with a slower shutter. I'm not, so I'm not too keen on that. And if you can deal with TouchWiz, and that's just half the battle, you're going to love this phone quite a bit. So for pricing and availability on the iPhone 6, it starts at $199 on a 2-year contract for the 16GB model. And if you want to up the capacity, since there's no micro SD, you got to buy it through Apple, and it costs $100 extra to get the 64GB model, or up it to the 128GB model, which is $200 extra from the 16GB price. But if you don't really want to do a contract and just want to buy it outright for the 16GB price, it's going to start you at $649, and it's available in space gray, white, silver, and gold. Moving to the iPhone 6 Plus's pricing and availability, it starts at $299 on a 2-year contract for the 16GB capacity, and if you want to go upwards and get more storage, it's going to run you an extra $100 to get the 64GB model and $200 to get the 128GB model, which is a ton. And if you're not keen on a contract and want to buy it outright, it's going to start at $749. And that just gets you the 16GB model. But I give you guys a challenge. If any of you guys get the 128GB model off contract, tweet me a picture, because that is some hefty money, and you must really want the iPhone 6 Plus that badly. And it comes in space gray, white, silver, and gold, same as the iPhone 6. And both of these phones are fantastic. Moving to the Samsung Galaxy S5's pricing and availability, it starts at $199 on a 2-year contract. And there's micro SD storage too, so definitely go ahead and do that and just throw a micro SD in there, and you're going to save tons of money. And you get a ton of color options depending on your carrier, but the 3 most popular are white, black, and blue. Blue's my personal favorite, but all of these phones are fantastic buys, and you can't really go wrong with either. Thank you guys so much for watching this video where we compared the brand new iPhone 6 and iPhone 6 Plus to the Samsung Galaxy S5. Now, if you guys enjoyed this comparison, then go and give this video a big thumbs up. is it really helps the channel out a bunch, and it lets me know that you guys want more comparisons like this and more Apple content to come your way. Also, while you're at it, drop me a comment down below letting me know, are you guys for Android, for Apple, if you're going to buy the S5, the new iPhones? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And if you're not buying either, let me know what device you currently own. Finally, go and subscribe to the channel. You can click the button in the description below-ish, or there's a link also on screen and in the description below. And it lets you know when a brand new video does come out, and I highly recommend subscribing as we have a ton of Apple stuff coming your way. Thank you guys once again, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.